Hello, Charlie TCG here. Welcome back to my channel. We've got quite a few tournaments happening over in May, so what exactly are the best decks to play right now? So in today's video, I'm going to break down my top 8 competitive picks to play pretty much for this month before we get into Twilight Masquerade at the end of the month. So without further ado, let's jump right into my number 8 pick. Now, my fact does go to Pidgeot Control. We can see it's done pretty well right now in all the tournaments combined, and has a decent match spread against most of the field. But I do think there is a few things holding back. I think Control is now in such a good position that it's now a known quantity. So I do think that Control can be very much rewarded in the high skills and player options right now. But I do think right now how much of the plethora is the decks are really trying to always kind of be evolving. So a lot of decks are capitalizing on this build. Now, this is in fact very similar to the top 8 sub list, and I think it's a very, very powerful one. I still think you need to play the high counts of Snorlax because as more and more people kind of like don't see Control doing very well, they're going to start disrespecting it and not play more heavy counts of Switch or Churros in this one. This is where this deck really capitalize on. I think it is a very good position right now in the metagame, but I think because it's such a known quantity, that's why it is my number 8 pick. My number 7 actually does go to the Roy Moon, or some people call it Duns and Dragons. Now, for me personally, I have not had really good success with this one playing it online, and I have a decent match spread against most of the field. But again, I think some of the best archetypes like Tina and Charizard, sometimes even Control, having a pretty poor matchup against this one, which you might be against nearly 50% of the field. Sorry, not 50%, that's very, very high, about 35% on the field, is definitely a little bit more scary. Obviously, Roy Moon is a really, really powerful deck. Have a really good Frenzy Gouge and instantly KO anything. Also, Calamity Storm to do 220 damage. But you also play also the Baby Roy Moon, or people call it Moon Moon, wherever the deck really kind of goes on. But it really works with that Venging Fluttering to pretty much try and get these big one-hit codes for single price Pokemon. I really love what the Dunsparce really adds to the deck. Dunsparce having free retreat and Dunsparce pretty much making sure you can draw through cards and then shuffle it back in is a really, really good synergy, especially with its very, very energy hungry, very, very much always wants so many cards in hand to get the big combo piece. I made kind of a big first one. This is a very similar to a top 8 list, which did pretty well a few weeks ago. But I would say that against the rest of the field, you can still struggle against Charizard. You do still struggle against the likes of the Lost Zone Tina because you can't get to those big one-hit KO numbers with ease unless you're using Frenzy Gaussian in the early turns. But that's why it is my number 7. My number 6 is still Turbo Hands. I am a big fan of this deck, and obviously it can capitalize really, really well on these really, really low HP Pokemon. Charizard, Lostina, Shenpao, Gardevoir, even likes of Lost Box. Iron Hand is a huge threat by using Ampy very much to pretty much get 2 prizes nearly everything on the field, if everything goes right, and we can see it has done really well in the results. Now, for me personally, I think it is a really, really good and very much still a scary archetype. If we just look at one of the lists here, we can see that you can pretty much get these big one-hit KO potential, do additional 100 damage potentially with your Ampy very much, do 220 damage. That is a very, very scary number. Shenpao basically being a 3-prize Pokemon, that is pretty scary. Now, the rest of it, metagame, you do obviously struggle against these high HP decks like the Arctinas, like anything like that. But against the likes of Lost Zone Tina and Charizard, these are very, very much, we're always having to evolve into this one. You can really outpace them, which is why I think this deck is really strong. But as you don't play that much inbuilt draw factors outside of the likes of Professor's Research and Iono, your Mew EX can definitely struggle a little bit to be that on-board and draw effect. And this is where this deck can definitely really hinder in that factor. But I do think it is a very, very nice, very well-placed deck right now in the metagame and having that number 6 spot. Because it's that good and has a pretty decent Charizard matchup. Now, my number 5 pick does go to Lost Zone Box. I'm a very much a huge believer that Lost Zone right now is in one of the best places it's been in a while, but it is still trying to figure itself out. I do think next format with the likes of Blood, Moon, Earth, Luna really adds that to Lost Zone to really have a very, very powerful secondary attacking option. We can see the results. It definitely isn't as good as what Lost Zone has once seen, but it did in fact get a second place. It's not just all Charizard. We did see that Sableye finally get a second place, which I'm a big, big fan of. Rest of the matchup wise, again, you're mostly 50-50 against most of the matchup game. Lost Mine is just such a powerful attacking, so as also your other good range. Royal Moon, Iron Hands, Raikou, and even likes of Hooper EX have had these big, great success. Now, Mew EX, I do think is a bit of a surprise, but I think it works really, really well because your opponent might not really think about it, not like kind of like have their Radiant Greninja on play, maybe not even bench their Manaphy. Then you can really surprise them by attacking with the Radiant Greninja. They might go, okay, I'll bench mana. They might still not think about Manaphy or not play it. Then you can dust up their own Radiant Greninja and use Mew EX to attack back. Obviously, you can use copy the likes of a Gutina or even Charizard in the late game. So I think these are some very, very good inclusions. One thing I think Hooper is still going to be good. We are seeing Arceus decks still perform very, very well. So I think Hooper is always going to have that inclusion in this one, having that fighting weakness, hitting effect. And also it plays Darkness Engine as well. You already play Darkness in likes of Roy Moon, so it instantly makes a lot of sense. One thing you're always going to notice with Lawson, you're always going to be careful about what energies you are glossing, what other counts. It's immediately it's the first thing you should check. I've played quite a few games of this sort of build, and it's so crazy how you sometimes do forget how many energies you play. Sometimes you go, oh, I can lost so much one lightning energy, but then you prize one or discarded it. You have to find a way to get it back to really utilize how powerful this deck can really become. This deck is a deck which really rewards you if you put the time and effort in, and it is going to be that really powerful archetype and could definitely do well at Indianapolis in just a few days' time. Number 4 pick goes to Gardevoir. This deck has had a lot of success recently. Not only did it do well, obviously, in Japan, but also it's done very, very well in our sort of format as well. Now, a lot of people did say that Gardevoir X is dead, and I didn't go to say this right now. It is not. I have played a lot of games this one, getting ready for my latest mastering video, which will be out next week, talking all about Gardevoir EX, why I think it is one of the strongest decks to play right now in the metagame. We can look at this matchup spread here. Again, nearly 50-50 against everything. Roy Moon, it's really funny because in the previous format, Roy Moon was definitely your most favorable matchup, but right now it's one of your worst one because it has that baby mood for that really additional more damage. But you have these two very, very good attackers, Drifloon and Screamtail. I think you should always play one more copy of Drifloon to always have that 2-1. You want to have these multiple attacking option. If you can't super them back in, you want to make sure you always have these 3 attacks to try and win the game that way. Now, this list is a little bit different than how we see most ones. I still like the Fluttermane and Klefki. I love the sort of the ability denial for your opponent, making sure they aren't playing the likes of it, pretty much helping your Lawson become a much more favorable matchup. But I also play one copy of Rare Candy. Now, I have found this to be absolutely crucial in my testing. Reason why? Well, you always want to go wide and big with a board state. You want to have all of your curlies out, all of your rocks, but sometimes in the late game, your opponent's just going to be targeting their curlies, not going after your attacks, just focusing on your Gardevoirs. And sometimes you might just have 2 rocks in play and maybe you can get 1 curlier, but then you've got nothing for another 2 turns and the opponent's just going to absolutely steamroll you. So having that additional 1 rare candy instantly makes sure you can kind of get a Gardevoir out swinging very quickly. It can be easy search with Arvin. You play so much draw back, you can instantly get it out as well. One crucial thing you should always mention when you play Gardevoir, don't really have it out and play that often. That's why I'm playing likes of a Churro and Collapse Stadium. You want to kind of get rid of it as many times as possible because against Charizard, against Chimpao, it's any deck which can easily get these 2 prize Pokemon. They're always going to target that. So if you can remove it when you can, that's exactly where I think this deck absolutely thrives. I think it's a very, very good position right now in metagame. Another deck which I think is also well positioned is, you guessed it, my amazing boy, Chimpao. And obviously it did very well in the last regionals in America, getting that top 4 position. Now, obviously it's not doing as well as a lot of people would have hoped, especially myself. I definitely thought Chimpao was going to be a lot better right now in metagame because I do think it is that well positioned. Now, it has a really good match against nearly everything, but I still think its Charizard matchup has actually become a little bit less favorable. But some of the decks aren't playing the likes of the Maximum Bulk, so you can sometimes be a bit greedy and start off with a Chimpao EX. That's one thing that definitely hindered on this archetype so much. Now, I've definitely turned a whole huge leaf and really do like Iron Bundle in the deck. I think Iron Bundle just really opens up so much by playing multiple copies of Super, making sure you can reutilize your Iron Bundle as much as possible. It's basically you have that guaranteed guts nearly every single time. Even decks which kind of like push up a single prize Pokemon, have lots of 2 prize in the bench, you can kind of like get a 2 prize knockout that way, i.e. in the likes of the future deck in the early sort of turns. I did up the sports count a little bit by having 2 Cypher Maniacs and 1 Iono, because I really do think you really need that setup. Sometimes you can even go with 3 Cypher Maniacs, but you are still playing Pokestop. You still want to have that really good draw synergy. I think Lost Vacuum becomes a lot more powerful. Heck, even if Gardevoir becomes a lot more stronger, you can effectively take a few more knockouts by getting rid of that Lost Vacuum. Or even get rid of a Maximum Belt, or sometimes in control matchup, getting rid of some very good key pieces of your deck. Getting rid of like an Iron Bundle, getting rid of any sort of scary decks which they can't really utilize Erica's Invitation on you. Now, I do think that this deck is kind of like definitely going to be performing very, very well. I do think it might dip away a little bit in the Twilight Masquerade sort of format, but right now, play your Chimpao because I think it is still very, very good, and it is pretty much well poised in the metagame. My number 2 pick actually does go to Lost and Giratina, one of the only other decks which actually is won in this format. If you go look at the Japan list as well, also anywhere in Asia and even our format as well, it's one of the only decks which actually performed pretty well, getting first and second place. I think Giratina is kind of like very, very strong right now. Obviously, it did lose likes of past week, but it hasn't slowed it down at all. We saw it get second place at EOIC. We see its matchup spread, how powerful it's nearly every single matchup is good except Gardevoir and Shenpao, which you could argue them to be even as well for this sort of matchup. I think the deck is really, really strong, and this is the build which I'm kind of like playing around with, not the likes of the Burnett. Obviously, the Burnett is definitely a build which is very interesting. I think the Burnett does help you kind of like have that item lock, helps you in a little bit of a slower sort of game as well. But also have that puppet offering to kind of like utilize your chorus experiment. But this deck here is a straightforward, clean cut, and it's a deck which could definitely do really, really well in the format. I think this deck is really well poised. It had a really good Charizard matchup. The Iron Leaf is still needed because Charizard is still a absolute huge threat to you right now, and the Iron Leaves are still like guaranteed KO as well as also like the Star Requiem. They're not playing a Miss Energy, so Giratina and Iron Leaves is potentially going to be enough for you to win the Charizard matchup. Plus, like so, sprinkle some damage to Sableye or Radiant Ninja just to be a little bit safe. Pokegear to kind of get your Chorus Experiment, and the Temple of Century to slow down your opponent because that's really the only sort of standing card you can really play in this deck. And now, you guessed it, the number 1 deck is Charizard. Just look at that results. 5 wins, 3 second places, and multiple top 4s, top 8s, and countless top 16s and top 32s. This deck is absolutely on a powerhouse right now in its meta game, and honestly, it's kind of for a good reason. The Infernal Range really energy accelerate, the Burning Darkness deal a huge amount of damage, and there's so many more chess pieces to play in the mirror match. Charizard is just that deck right now. It is so strong. It's not in Lugia levels, but there are so many ways around how Charizard is super good. If you look at the matchup spread, I would say you're nearly pretty much even nearly every single deck right now. You still definitely struggle with control, but some people are still playing likes of a Churro to really kind of like capitalize on this one. I like the Churro, I like the Collapse Stadium. It's really, really powerful. Now, this is definitely similar to likes of Torto, but I still am playing a few of my sort of flares in this one. I still like Erie and TM Depot in this deck. I think this can really swing you sometimes in the mirror match, as well as also help you in likes of your Shenpao matchup, or any sort of deck which really relies on a rare candy. Now, I am playing Power Pad with the Professor Churro instead of playing more copies and Team Meowth Chip, because I do think you want to kind of like utilize your Churro as much as possible. Yes, I know the Power Pad isn't exactly safe from an Erie, but if you are definitely worried about Erie, this can instantly be swatched out to Team Meowth Chill. Clap Stadium to get rid of your Meowth Rotom, Clever to help the support, and again, as most people are playing, they're still playing the 202 pitcher and a 119 Bibarel because it is just that powerful right now. I think Charizard is definitely going to be poised to do really well for the rest of the format. Heck, maybe until Dragapult kind of dethrones it when we get to the NAIC metagame. But for right now, those are my top picks right now, what I would be playing going into the tournaments happening in May. We have quite a few regionals left of this format before we get to a brand new one as well. But I think that Charizard, Loftina, Shenpao, and Gardevoir are right now my top 4 picks, and those would be the decks which I'll be sleeving up going to a tournament. If you want to have the great success and learn the mirror match, definitely Charizard EX. If you want to kind of like really think about exactly what you should be doing, you want a more thought-provoking deck, any of the other decks like Giratina, Gardevoir, or Shenpao are really good ones as well. Can really help you with that sequencing and understanding resources. So I hope you guys have enjoyed this video. If you have, please make sure to like, subscribe, and comment down below. Where do you think the archetypes kind of like fit into going into the metagame? What deck will you be playing in the latest regionals? And I hope you guys enjoyed the video. See you guys later. Bye for now.